Hi, folks. Tim Forshey here with Guns and Gavels once again. Everybody always talks about when you have to use self-defense, it's a fight for your life. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but I think it's important to point out that it's not a fight for your life. It is fights for your life. What am I talking about? Well, clearly the one we're most familiar with would be the physical aspect of the fight. Somebody's attacking you, you're in fear for your life, and you're going to use whatever tools you have available to you to stop that threat. You have to survive, whether that's fists or pepper spray or running or guns. You're going to use physical skill of some sort, physical ability of some sort, in order to stop that lethal threat to your life. That's incredibly important. Nothing else matters if you're dead, right? So clearly, we have to be proficient at that. And we have to be able to make sure that you can stop that threat. A lot of people think that that's where the analysis stops. I'm alive. I survived the fight. I'm a winner. Good to go. Sadly, not the truth. There's at least two other huge important fights coming up. The number two is probably what I would term the psychological fight. The psychological devastation caused by shooting and killing somebody, or for that matter, killing somebody in any manner, of course, is going to wipe out what you thought was your life. It's going to completely change your perspective. A lot of people have survivor's guilt, the mark of Cain. Everywhere you go, that people are talking about how you killed someone. The constant nagging guilt, the self-doubt, the reanalysis, it causes people no end of problems. PTSD is something we've all started to hear about in the last 2 or 3 decades. It was largely unheard of prior to that. It's been around since the dawn of time. The effect on the human psyche, very high rate of unemployment, very high rate of marital discord and divorce, sadly, a very high rate of suicide. People simply cannot handle the guilt. They can't handle the aspect of dealing with this, and they decide that they can't go on any further. So in order to inoculate yourself to these kind of horrific things, if you haven't already read Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman's absolute work of art book on killing, you absolutely need to. In fact, pause the video right now, go online, order it, buy it. Once it's delivered, read it, and then rejoin us. Okay, we'll wait. Ready? Okay, we're back. Now, wasn't that a great book? That book gives you a whole lot of perspective and information about what we're talking about here, the psychological impact of taking a human life. And you simply have to deal with it now. You won't be able to successfully deal with it then. Inoculate yourself. Read that book. Read other books. Grossman's written 2 or 3 other great books about it. There's lots of information out there. You have to avail yourself. Do you have a counselor lined up? Someone that follows your philosophic bent that can help you deal with this? If not, do it now. You won't be able to do it then. Last but not least, of course, is the third fight. And I'm embarrassed to tell you, or sad to tell you, that I'm part of that fight. It's the legal fight. This is something that a lot of people don't prepare for because they don't really understand the concept. It can be the most self-appropriate, it can be the most righteous shooting in the history of man, and you can still wind up being prosecuted with this. For instance, look at the famous Zimmerman case, the more recent famous Rittenhouse case. People who were clearly in fear for their life, who a jury agreed the case should probably never even been charged, still had to fight for their life legally. I've heard that both of those cases, that the defense cost was somewhere north of $2 million. I heard as high as, I believe, 3.2 on the Rittenhouse matter. That is financial devastation, folks. Again, yes, even in a righteous shooting. So we have to talk about how in the heck anybody, even people that are well off, can afford to pay for that. If you can afford to pay $3 million for an attorney to fight this case, you certainly don't want to. You didn't get in the position where you could afford that by being frivolous with money. So you've got to think about how we're going to basically curb this risk. Most of us have health insurance. How many of you would have health insurance if you could somehow guarantee that you would never have any sort of a devastating need for health insurance? In other words, if you could guarantee you'd never be diagnosed with a serious illness like a cancer or something, if you could guarantee that you'd never be involved in a serious accident where you might be losing a limb or multiple limbs, or damage to an internal organ, if you'd never need hospitalization, if you'd never need 6 or 7 figure medical bills, who amongst us would bother with health insurance? If all I needed was my annual checkup and a prescription for my cholesterol medication, I would just pay out of pocket. It's much cheaper just to pay the doctor and to pay the pharmacist than it is to pay a middleman to pay the doctor and the pharmacist. Insurance sucks, okay? So none of us like insurance. Unfortunately, there are certain aspects of our life where we almost have no real financially savvy way of dealing with this other than to insure the risk. And unfortunately, that applies to the costs that we're speaking about right now as well. If you ever get involved in a shooting, you can expect financial ruin if you don't have some way to offset that cost. So the way that we would recommend you do that is to look into joining our program, Safe House Defense, Legal Concierge Program. We're very, very proud of it. We're getting great feedback from all the clients and customers. Highly recommend you look into it. You can click below for information about that program, Safe House Defense. And if you have questions, of course, contact us and we'll try to answer them. Anyway, figure out some way that you're going to deal with this problem before the problem happens. Thanks for tuning in. and stay safe. Make sure you win all three of those fights.